Hello everybody, my name is Nootmad and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 build video, and today we are going over my Triple Threat 2.0 Moze build. Now, the original Triple Threat build was one of my best multi-purpose builds for Moze, honestly, and just because of the fact that you can pick up a lot of different skills that buff not only Moze but also Iron Bear, this build enables you to do a very powerful hybrid setup as long as you use the right class mods. But yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea to update it. It has been a while, and yeah, I guess we'll get straight into the video. But just before we do, I just want to let you guys know that I've been streaming on Twitch on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings Eastern time. So if you want to jump in and hang out while we work on builds just like this one, do random takedowns together, or just hang out, I'll be putting the link to my Twitch channel in a pinned comment down below. But with all that out of the way, let's just get straight into the video, shall we? Okay, so I think the best place to kick off this build video is with the weapons we suggest to use. So I'm going to suggest 4 weapons just because these are the ones I've been enjoying using on this build, but feel free to use any high splash damage weapon or just even kinetic weapons that you enjoy. So weapons like the Flipper, the Beacon, Plague Bearers, Backburners are always best in slot for this build, but just for the sake of, I guess, expanding upon the weapon selection Moze, and just so I can give people some ideas on other weapons you can use that aren't just the straight up meta choices, I'm just going to quickly go over 4 weapons that I've been enjoying quite recently that have been doing an absolute ton of work for mobbing and bossing. So the first weapon on this list is the Unkempt Herald. It's a Torgue pistol from DLC 3 and drops from Caber Dord over in Bloodsun Canyon. And yeah, the Unkempt Herald, I've spoken about it before in my previous videos. This gun is an absolute machine, considering it has a high projectile count, pretty decent fire rate, high mag size, as well as when you combine it with the consecutive hits anoint or the 390 anoint, this gun is an absolute killer. However, if you are bossing, I highly suggest getting the consecutive hits variant. But if you're mobbing in, I guess, medium to difficult areas, like the Anvil, Conrad's Hold, and Slaughter Shaft, you can get away with the consecutive hits or even the 390 anoint. As far as the elements go, the Unkempt Herald can roll in any, but I recommend getting a kinetic version and maybe a corrosive or cryo variant. Radiation element, is also very useful, and in any splash weapons, having a radiation element is just absolutely great. So yeah, that's the Unkempt Herald out of the way, and the next pistol on this list is the Prompt Critical. Now, I've already spoken about this in my Bloodsplosion Moze build, and I'm sure you guys already know how powerful this gun is, and on this build, it's no different. A radiation one with the ×3 variant with the consecutive hits anoint is an absolute force to be reckoned with, and I highly recommend using this for any mobbing situations in the game. We then move on to the Contained Blast. This is a Torgue assault rifle, also from DLC 3, and yeah, I've mentioned this once again in my previous videos, and this gun is an absolute machine. It is semi-automatic, but because of the way, I guess, the weapon acts, you can actually spam fire it really fast as long as you can click the trigger fast enough. So it kind of feels like a Jacobs, where it fires as fast as you can pull the trigger. It comes in a ×2 variant, which is what I would recommend, and the consecutive hits is the best anointment for it, in my opinion. And so yeah, that's the Contained Blast in a nutshell. And the next assault rifle on this list is the Chaos. Now, this is a vanilla gun, base game I mean, and it drops from the psych abilities over in Ambermire. And I have played around with this on stream quite a bit, and it's honestly a really solid assault rifle. At the start of this month in September, I think it was on the 3rd, it got a hotfix and it buffed it by quite a lot, as well as the explosive quote-unquote Nova that happens when you get a kill with the Chaos was also buffed with the radius and the damage. And since that buff, this gun has become incredibly solid to use. It has a very high fire rate considering it's a dull, and it's also fairly accurate, meaning you can get those headshots, and considering the fact that we're going to be using a Mine Super class mod, weapons with high base accuracy are very useful. And so yeah, those are the 4 weapons I've been using on this build personally. But once again, feel free to use, I guess, any of the meta selections. So once again, guns like the Flipper, the Beacon, Plague Bearer, Backburner, all those sorts of guns will work perfectly. But yeah, just wanted to, I guess, show some other weapons that people might not use a lot, that I think are worth using for this build. So those are the weapons out of the way, and as far as the gear goes, we are using the Multivitamin Plus Ultra. This is a DLC 4 shield, and it gives us slight ammo absorption, which is fine, but what we're really after is the action skill cooldown rate and the extra HP. Now, because Moze's HP is based on percentage and not a flat number, skills like Vampire and Redistribution, as well as Russian Offensive, work very nicely with the health regen, because yeah, it just helps us to get a lot of health back really quickly. and enables us to take a little bit more damage, which helps a lot for survivability. As far as the anointment goes, I recommend getting the CDR, the Iron Bear CDR anointment. However, you can use a bonus element anoint instead if you want to, I guess, spam Iron Bear a lot to get some extra elemental damage. But overall, just for a more synergistic hybrid playstyle with this, using Moze and Iron Bear, I recommend getting this after exiting Iron Bear. Kills increase Iron Bear's cooldown by 30%. So, that's the shield out of the way. And as far as the class mod goes, I highly recommend using the Minesweeper class mod. Now, the Minesweeper, as we all know, is probably one of Moze's best high damage comms. And as far as the stat rolls go, I recommend getting weapon crit damage, splash damage, and weapon type damage. So whether that be assault rifle damage, SMG damage, pistol damage, anything like that, just match that to the type of weapons that you use. As far as the skills go, 1 in redistribution and either 4 in torque cross motion or 4 in Skagden. It's really up to you. I just like the extra splash damage and splash radius that torque cross motion gives us, so that's why I went with that. But you can also get +4 in Skagden if you choose. So that is the class one out of the way. And as far as the relic goes, I recommend getting a Snowdrift Victory Rush. Victory Rush suffix at the very least, and the Snowdrift Beef Pricks helps with mobility. You can however use things like the Icebreaker or the Atom Bomb if you choose, but I just like the extra slide speed because Moze is basically a snail, unless you're using the Speed Demon Mayhem modifier. And so yeah, that's the Snowdrift in a nutshell. And as far as the substats go, once again, I reckon getting weapon type damage based on the weapons you're using. Because I'm mostly using assault rifles and pistols, I have pistol damage on my relic and assault rifle damage on my class mod, so I can use either of those weapon types without having to suffer too much of a damage loss as far as high levels of optimization goes. I also recommend getting action skill cooldown rate on your Victory Rush, just to help Iron Bear get back even faster, because once again, this is a sort of hybrid build, and it helps a lot to be able to have that. And we also have area of effect damage. Because we're using a Minesweeper class mod, those micronades scale with AoE and splash rolls, so that's why I have it on my relic. Now, that's out of the way, we have the Spring Epicenter, which is our grenade of choice. Now, I have been using the CMT and the Hex Grenade for quite a while, but in recent times I've started messing around with the Spring Epicenter a lot more, and honestly I find this a lot nicer to use. If you get a direct hit with the Spring Epicenter, you basically get yourself straight up to full health. I don't know how exactly that works, but compared to things like the CMT grenade where you need multiple grenade hits to put yourself on full HP, not to mention the fact that those grenades from the CMT nade can spawn and hit you instead and down you. Spring Epicenter, what it does is you chuck it and then it spawns these orbs like Troy does in his fight, and yeah, I guess the way when you throw it, they all hit the enemy at the same time, giving you an absolute ton of HP. So in fights like Wotan, for example, where there's a big slow moving enemy, for the most part, well, we all know Wotan jumps around a lot, but for the most part, being able to hit a single Epicenter grenade on bosses like that puts you back up straight to full HP, which is very good, as opposed to something like a CMT that requires multiple grenade hits and takes longer to put you up to full health. So that's why I recommend the Spring Epicenter. The Spring prefix gives you that sort of jumping effect, which means it gives you extra grenade spawns as opposed to just a vanilla Epicenter, which doesn't have that. And as far as the anoint goes, I recommend getting the on grenade throw anoint. It gives us extra weapon and grenade damage for by 25% for 6 seconds, which is great to have. And considering we have means of destruction to give us grenade regen, it works very nicely. So yeah, that's basically the gear out of the way. And for the next bit of this video, we'll go over the skill trees. Okay, welcome back everyone, and yeah, in this bit of the video we're going to go over the skill trees. So, let's start off with Demolition Woman, shall we? And as far as you can see on the screen, there's nothing too particularly unique for this build. We have Skagden because it gives us a ton of instant damage or splash. Because it uses a Minesweeper class mod, it benefits from that incendiary damage bonus and enables us to get those really quick kills on enemies. We have Means of Destruction to help us with our grenade regen. The ammo regen is nice, but in more instances it's more useful for the grenade regen to help us proc Vampire, which is another skill we have at 3 out of 5, just to give us that extra health regeneration. You can, however, take points out of Stainless Steel Bear, for example, if you're really struggling to survive, to put yourself more points of Vampire to give yourself extra health regen. But honestly, if you're using something like the Spring Epicenter, you don't really need those extra points, because like I said, a single grenade toss can put you up to full HP with 3 out of 5 points of Vampire. We have 5 points in torque cross motion for the extra splash damage and splash radius, and because I'm boosting it by an extra 4 points with my class mod, I'm giving myself a total of 54% splash damage, which is absolutely huge for Moze because of the way she plays. We also have Auto Bear to help with aggro draw during bossing and mobbing. And so with Auto Bear we can use hardpoint arguments like target softening to help with boss killing for the bosses to take more damage, and so it just helps a lot as a bit of utility. But we also have Pull the Holy Pin. We are using an epicenter, but if you choose to swap in a CMT grenade, for example, you can spam those and get more micronade spawns from that and enable us to do a bit more damage. To the last is a very useful utility skill, single point, and yeah, just helps us maintain our Turing to Die Guardian perk to help us stay alive a little bit longer while in second wind to get ourselves to get out of fight for your life. And we also have Short Fuse, one of Moze's best damage skills, scales from a lot of different things including splash damage, which is why we ended up boosting torque cross motion, and yeah, just works very nicely. Now we don't have any points in Grizzled, and I know I mentioned that this is a hybrid build, but from my playtesting I found with the cooldown rate substat on your relic, as well as the cooldown anointment on your shield, plus the Plus Ultra's innate cooldown reduction ability, you can get Iron Bear back fairly fast without even having to put points in Grizzled. But if you do find you're having too much downtime in Iron Bear and you do want to use it a bit more, feel free to take points out of Stainless Steel Bear and put a few in Grizzled instead. I recommend putting at least 4. But at the cost of that, you are missing out on a bit of Skagged and damage. But at the end of the day, it's not that significant. Fire and Skagden already scales quite significantly because of the Mayhem levels, so even if you weren't to put points in Stainless Steel Bear, you're not really going to miss out on a significant amount of damage, and in turn you can make sure you have higher uptime on Iron Bear. But just from my testing with this build, you don't really need points in Grizzled, but yeah, it's just more of a quality of life thing if you are struggling to keep Iron Bear up at all times. So that is Demolition Woman out of the way, and we move on to Shield of Retribution. Now, once again, this tree is nothing too special. We did have points in Drowning in Brass and Experimental Munitions to give us extra damage, as well as Security Bear to give us that bubble shield that gives us damage reduction even when it's not active, but also helps as well because we have a high amount of Iron Bear armor and this shield scales with that. Moze herself can use it as a bit of cover, so you can just pop Iron Bear, sit behind the shield and just shoot enemies in front of you, and Moze herself won't take as much damage. And so yeah, that's Shield of Retribution. However, if you choose to get Corrosive Saber rounds, you can absolutely do so. You can just take a couple points out of either Stainless Steel Bear or Torque Cross Motion. It's truly up to you. So yeah, you can sink 2 points into things like Flat of Ingenuity just to get yourself to Corrosive Saber instead. So you can get that hard point to do more bossing damage to armor targets like Wotan. But realistically, you don't really need it. This build already has a ton of damage Moze on foot, and honestly you can get away with this using capacitive armatures just because of how much damage Iron Bear does currently with the scaling and all those sorts of changes that happened recently. And so yeah, that's Shield of Retribution. And then we can swiftly move on to Bottomless Mags. Once again, pretty standard green tree setup. We have Scorching RPMs and Specialist Bear to buff Iron Bear damage. Scorching RPMs also gives us critical hit damage, which overall boosts the damage of our Minesweeper micronades, which is very nice. We have 2 points in redistribution, one from our class, one from putting the point into that. Give ourselves ammo regen and health regen, which is a very nice skill to have. We also have Russian Offensive, it's lifesteal, what's not to love, and Some for the Road. Now, Some for the Road is sort of an optional pick. I just like having the extra ammo after exiting Iron Bear just to get ourselves more damage when bossing, but you can take this point out and put it into something else, like if you need an extra point of Vampire, you could do that. If you want to sink that point into Red Tree, so you don't have to take as many points out of Stainless Steel Bear to get Corrosive Saber, you can feel free to do that too. And so yeah, that's basically the skill tree, and with that, that's it, the video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and hope you find it useful. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. But as well, if you are new to the channel and you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I do have a lot more content coming out that I'm sure you'll find useful. So if you subscribe, you'll be notified when I post new videos. And so yeah, definitely that's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.